Hi, and welcome to this demo VAST AI OS deploying Polaris in Google Cloud Platform. Let's first start by understanding what Polaris is. So in order to understand it, we need to talk about the VAST AI operating system. The operating system varies from the beginning of storage protocols that we host to anywhere like databases and the ability to run AI agents within the VAST AI OS itself. Oh, for this particular demo, we're going to talk about the data space factor. The data space is the ability to run your VAST data, the OS itself, in various locations. More specifically for this demo, we're going to talk about the ability to run it in Google Cloud, also known as the Google GCP. So the first thing you need to do in order to run the VAST AI OS in GCP, we need to have some prerequisite met. The first thing is we want to subscribe to the VAST Data Cloud from the Google portal. We want to have the G Cloud, the Google Cloud SDK installed, and we also need the Terraform SDK to be installed, and the minimum version that we want to install is around 1.5.4. We also want to authenticate our Google account with a specific subscription to the VAST Cloud being authenticated. And you can basically run the authentication command, which will also run through the demo through the Google console. So how does it all look? This is how the data cloud in GCP looks like when you want to subscribe to the VAST AI OS itself. You probably want to talk to your pre-sale account in order to ensure that you're subscribing to the right AI OS version and capacity and things of that nature. And once you run the authentication, you can also see that you have the Google Cloud resource assigned to your specific account. In this particular demo, I'm going to use a developer account that I am and have as part of me being a VAST employee. So you can see here the VAST data and the specific group known as VAST on Cloud that I'm a member of, and I'm going to use it throughout the deployment itself. Once I've got all the prerequisite met and I have my account ready and set up, I will need to first log in into the VAST Cloud Platform portal in order to deploy it so it has a nice UI. This is the URL that I'm using, but again, it's a local instance. You probably as a customer has a different URL as an external GCP customer and of course as a VAST customer. So I'm going to use my account, which is being associated with this particular instance, and I'm going to sign in. And here you can see the initial portal user interface. To the left, you can see the deployment tab, the data space tab, the directory tab. For the purpose of this demo, we're just going to deploy the VAST AI OS there. We're not going to touch the data space. That will come in a following demo. And you can also see the version. Since Polaris is a SaaS version, it's very likely that you're going to see a newer version up there, which of course we keep adding more features and improving the Polaris experience and so on and so forth. And so, of course, you're probably going to see a different version. And on the knowledge base, you can also see references pointing you to specific how-to guides, if you will. To the upper right side of the screen, you can see your user account and the email that has been associated with it. So the first thing we want to do is to create my first deployment by clicking your Create Your First Deployment icon. Here you can see the entitlement that your user account is entitled to. And so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give the deployment a name. Let's call it EAT604. You're probably going to have a more meaningful name in your account. The project ID is really the group that you belong to. In my specific account, since it's internal demo, I'm going to use the VAST on Cloud project ID. You're probably going to have a different one. And here what's also more important is the instance type, which vCPUs you're going to use and how much RAM you're going to use for this particular instance in GCP, etc., etc. The region that you're going to run VAST on Cloud in Polaris, whether it's going to be in US or Europe, I'm just going to leave it in the default US Central, and the specific, in my case, the zone that I'm going to deploy it in GCP, which zone I'm going to run it at, and the capacity. So here, at least in the current moment, you have two options: single host VAST cluster, which is really meaningful for POCs, and you just want to test VAST on Cloud and see how it works, and production VAST cluster, where you actually want to run Polaris in the VAST on Cloud in a much bigger fashion when you're going to probably run it in production, etc., etc. So for the purpose of the demo, I'm just going to click single host VAST cluster. Here you can see some other values that you can configure, like tags and values and so on and so forth, the summarize screen, and the create deployment configuration. So let's click it. And what it will come up with is a summarize of all the configuration that you've set, and more importantly is the VAST on Cloud CLI. I've already installed it, but you want to download it since it's going to be the tool that you're going to use to deploy it. Since I'm running a Windows version, this is how it's going to look like once you download the VAST Cloud executable. In Mac, it will look, of course, different. And the first thing that you want to do is use this utility to log in to your GCP account to ensure that you are authenticated. So I'm just going to copy that command and execute it from here and see that I can actually authenticate with my account to this particular instance. Yep, let's run it. Let's wait a little bit for it to open the browser screen. And this is how the authentication screen will look like. It's going to use your Google account authentication. So I'm just going to click. You need to give it the ability to authenticate and use this particular permission with your account. So click allow. It's going to ask you for this username again. So click continue. The password, sign in. And if you are successful, it will give you a prompt here saying authentication is successful. And if I go back to the CLI, you can also see that I'm authenticated successfully with the VAST Cloud CLI itself. And now what's left to do is to actually deploy the cluster. So let's go back to the same Polaris main screen. Once I performed the authentication successfully in the previous step, let's deploy it. So let's click this particular command, go back to the CLI, and let's run it. It's going to generate the pin. It asks me whether I want to follow this particular configuration. This is the one that I've selected before, so yes. It's going to show me the specific region and the zone that I've selected before, and now it asks me for the specific network configuration. This should be already pre-configured by your side as a GCP customer. I'm just going to use the one that I'm going to use for this demo, VAST on Cloud Main Jumbo, just an internal network that we configure for this particular development instance. So let's click it. And it's also going to ask me for an IP range for these networks. Those are important since you want them to probably be reachable by your internal organization via VIPs or VPN and things of that nature. So you can probably mobilize data between your cluster on-premises, VAST data on-premises to the cloud, etc., etc. So I have mine already pre-configured. So let's input them into the screen. Click enter. Are you sure this is the VIPs that you want to configure? Yes. Do you want to run a pre-checker? Probably want to. So let's click the yes button. Are you sure you want to create a cluster in GCP? Yes, we are. So let's click the yes. And it's now going to actually start the deployment itself. It's going to take a while, so you probably want to bring some coffee or something. And throughout the time, it will show you the status configuration and the IPs. So I'm going to suspend the demo and come back to it shortly. So here's an example after some time has been passed. You can view the status. And as you can see, it provides you a management URL and the monitor URL. The management URL is the IP that you're going to connect once everything is up and running, including the IP address, but the monitor URL is the IP that you can use in the meantime if the Terraform progress is not sufficient for you. So you can actually go to this site with the port 5551. As you can see, I've already opened it here, and you can see the current progress of the current installation. Okay, so now that the deployment has been completed, you can see the status, you can see that everything was done successfully, all the progress is done, and all the IP addresses that you're going to use going forward. So let's start with the management URL. This is the one that you can use to log into the VAST cluster in Google Cloud. So let's log into it. As you can see, this is the one that's ended with 165. It's the one here. It's the same user interface that you are using with your VAST on-premises deployment if you are using the VAST AI OS on-premises. And let's log into it. As I said, the same interface, the same tabs, etc. If you go to the element store, you can see the views that have been configured or not. Since it's the new cluster, there is nothing here that's configured. And you can see the name of the cluster, the release that this current cluster is running in GCP, etc., etc. And of course, you can use and configure things like global namespace and the data space replication between the cluster user accounts, etc., etc. And if we go back to the same Polaris, interface that we used to initially create the configuration file, you can see that the cluster has been created here. If we go back to the dashboard, we can see all the subscription entitlement information, etc., etc., including the cluster that we've built. Your data space tab, while still in preview mode currently, also provides you the ability to list your cluster and even expand the cluster in terms of capacity should you wish to do so. And many more features will be available shortly here, including replication, etc., etc. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time.